Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandia, so back on another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So because you enjoyed, don't like, comment, subscribe, and let's get started, shall we? This time we are covering the penultimate deck of the set 13 / Lyrical Monasterio set 4 deck profiles, and that is Lyrical Monasterio set 4 Prisms. So it's our second encounter deck for Lyrical Monasterio. It's all around pretty interesting, and I'd say out of this and Pacifica, I would much rather play Prisms, just because personally I find Prisms more entertaining, but I mean, hey, that's me. So let's go ahead and get this deck file started, shall we, and see what we got, because honestly, I love playing this deck. I don't know why I do. I don't care about Prisms in V, and I don't care about them in Premium, but for some reason for D, I really like them. So first up today, we have our starter in Coaxing Diva Milen. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto and upon. If you win second, draw a card. Standard starter, nothing special, it's just a free draw if you go second. You can make this at any Lyrical Monasterio starter you want, because none of the ride line requires this, but I mean, might as well go for the quote-unquote theme, because she is a mermaid, like the other Lyrical, like the rest of the Lyrical Monasterio line, but also she came out when, like, she was released the same day as Prisms were released, so technically speaking, she's the Prisms, like, canonical starter. Make this whatever you want, because like I said, none of the ride line really requires it, but because it came out with them, might as well. Then we have our triggers. First, we run over trigger and Mysterious Twins, Romia and Romia. Romia and Rumia. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base. Over trigger, one more trigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of your use against one for the turn. And if you revealed it during your draft check, activate its additional effect. Would you get during this fight, you get during your turn. All your rear guards get plus 10,000 power. So, if you sack this regardless, defensively, offensively, no one cares. Free 1 million in a draw. You either are probably going through with the attack that has the million on it, or if you pull this defensively, your opponent's probably not killing you that turn. It is possible to kill someone with 1 million power. You just either have to be playing DP, because DP has proven it can actually do it if you bullshit your way through it, like my friend almost did. Okay, we're being almost. He failed because he died the turn before, but he could have done it. We did the math. Or you just pull your own over against them. But ignoring that effect and focusing on the 10k one, if you pull this offensively, your entire board will get 10k. And when you're playing a deck that can consistently get 5 attacks each turn, once you get to grade 3, yeah, that 10k starts to do a lot. So, one of Romia and Rumia, you can run Volnut for more consistent multi-attack, or Asphoria for cycling, but if you pull any of them offensively, I guarantee you this one will have the greater effect of the two, unless, like, you are winning that turn. And even then, this will probably still have the greater effect of the 3. So, one of Romia and Rumia, just free 10k. Then we have our normal triggers. We run 2 copies of both Transparent Snowy Night Bear Toy and Snowskip Halvi. They're both grade 0s with boost and 4k power. Their difference lies in their triggers and their guard power. Bear Toy has a 5k base guard, while Halvi has a 15k base as a front trigger, while Bear Toy is a draw. And they both share the same skill and continuous guard circle. If your opponent's vanguards are grade 3 or greater, they get plus 5k shield. So 20k shield and 10k shield respectively is all around pretty helpful, especially in late games where you are kind of trying to conserve the most important units that are required for the 5 attack play. So, you know, being able to have some extra guard power lie around and basically replace them is nice, especially because worst case scenario, if you do have to rely on those cards, they do end up increasing their own guarding power, so you know you have more defensive overall, so your opponent swinging at you with a big ass number is at least a little bit more manageable. So that's nice. And you know, them being their respective triggers, you got a front in a deck that bounces before it attacks and still calls before the drive check occurs, meaning the newly called units that are going to go on the multi-attack can still get the front benefit. And then as for the draw, well, this deck has important pieces you want to pull, and believe it or not, this draw shows up like Lena does in Stoic K. And for those of you that don't know, for me and Lena, I swear is out of 4 of in all of my decks, even though I know she's out of 2 of in half of them, and like I will pull her consistently every game, like to the point where I truly believe that there's just an extra 2 copies in there that just never show up, even though I consistently check and it's never there. So 2 of Bear Toy, 2 of Palvi, they're nice for triggers, and what's nice like about them. Then, of course, like the Pacifica line, we have 7 crits, except somehow in this deck it's less dangerous because I only draw my crits. That's literally how it is. I normal draw all my crits, but at the same time, 5 attacks. You pull 1 crit with 5 attacks, your opponent's probably dead. In fact, 5 attacks with 1 crit, if your opponent doesn't guard any of them for some reason, they lose. And by the way, the Vanguard gets a freebie crit on herself, meaning your opponent could just take everything and then you don't have to pull any triggers, and if they legitimately take everything, for some arbitrary reason, they lose the game. So just take that as you will. Anyway, 7 crits, 3 of Fluffy Lady Godville, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k base. You can make this any crit you want. I just made her because, you know, she fits the name of being mermaid. And then 4 Precious Tune Edwidge. I do recommend Edwidge in this deck, though. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k base, auto rear guards, the amount that she boosted. Put this unit to soul, choose one reads, 2k for the turn. Okay, if you play this like I do, you might not run into a soul problem, but at the same time, I swear what I'm doing is illegal, and we'll get to that point later, because I've checked it, and it looks like it's legal, but it feels so wrong, but I'll explain it later. But anyways, with Edward's skill being able to send herself to soul, she would cancel out the soul problem this deck may have if what I'm doing is actually incorrect, but even then, like, it's just free extra soul, and 2k in a 5 multi-attack deck, I mean, you never know when that's going to come in handy. So 4 of Edward, she's nice, and worst case scenario, if you have to call it a rear guard, she's going to get your soul and 2k out of it, so there's that. And then we have 4 heals in Diva of Ataraxia, Georgiana. Okay, I'm gonna try that one more time. Diva of Ataraxia, Georgina. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power, standard heal, enough spot. You can really make this any heal you want. I just chose to make it her because, again, like God Leave, it's a mermaid. Actually, it's a human. Oh, no, it is a mermaid. I read that as human for a second. But no, yeah, it's a mermaid. It fits the theme. You can run the counter heals if you want to, but I'd much rather have the normal non-effect heals because I feel like the fluctuating 10 to 25k shield is not that helpful in a lot of situations because, again, they fluctuate depending on the situation you're in. So I have the consistent 15k shield, but I mean, hey, whatever heals you want. And I move on to our grade 1s. First, we're going to 4 copies of Chilling Tonight Nebornia. So, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. This is a card I didn't think was going to be that useful in the deck. And then I started playing it, and now every match I don't see her, I feel a little bit of depression thinking that this might be the game I lose because I don't have the extra 5k. Auto rear guard, when your unit with Prism and its card name is placed on another rear guard circle in the same column as her, so don't try blocking this off from the back center because that's not going to work. That placed unit will get plus 5,000 power for the turn. That is a non-once per turn effect that works regardless if it's during the main phase or battle phase. Meaning, if you pull 2 of these to your rear guard side columns, and you call 2 prisms during the main phase, they'll get 5,000 power. They get 5,000 power from their skill because of how the D1s work. You swing with them. The Vanguard swings. You bounce the other 2 prisms in the front row, you call them right back, and then you give them 5k more from their skill and 5k more from this thing's skill, and then you give probably 5k more to the front row, meaning your entire front row, granted the Vanguard, but at least like the 2 rear guards got plus 15k. 4 of Nerbonia. It allows for your rear guards to hit without needing boosters, which is always the biggest problem in multi-attack decks, being able to boost and not boost. But the fact that she gives them a half boost already on top of their other half boost is great, and she just adds numbers. 4 of her. She's just an amazing grade 1, and I love her, and she does it all for free. And then we have 4 copies of our Prism grade 1. Prism Promise Lelet. The part of the thing that I swear is like an illegal play. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Again, I'm not so sure if it is. I'm pretty sure it's not because it seems legal, but it feels so wrong doing it because it feels like it's incredibly abusable. Anyways, Autumn was placed on rear guard circle from the hand or put on guard circle from the hand. Pretty much just only place it from the hand. If you have a Vanguard Labrador in its card name, it gets 5,000 power and 5,000 shield. Okay, not saying that there is a Labrador that doesn't have Prism in its card name, but if for some reason they ever made one that didn't have Prism in its card name, granted it makes the rest of the ride line kind of useless, but for some reason this card and the Prism grade 2 aren't affected by it because it just looks for the Labrador name. So I'm just saying, but she has options. Anyways, being a 10k shield and a 13k base is pretty nice. So worst case scenario, if you have to call her to guard circle, you can, and she'll basically be like Bear Toy. And if you're calling her to rear guard like it's supposed to be, she's a 13k swinger. And if we proc up this thing, 18k swinger. So there's that. And then Auto, when she's returned from rear guard to the hand, if you have a Vanguard Labrador in its card name, you may soul charge 1. Then if you do not countercharge this turn, countercharge 1. This is not the part I'm worried about. It's this part that I'm worried about. Because, like, again, it doesn't say once per turn. It doesn't say you can't use this ability more than once per turn. It just says when you bounce it. If the Vanguard is a Labrador, you may soul charge 1. It is not a mandatory soul charge 1. But with the way this deck works, you can just pay soul and then immediately get it right back by like soul charging. And yeah, it brings you closer to decking out, but like, I don't know, with like the way I've played this deck so far, it feels like this is broken and like that is illegal. But by the way I'm reading this and the way Vanguard rules work, that is a legal play, and I don't understand why because it feels so fucking abusable. And then this ability is just nice because pretty much the deck only uses 1 to 2 CB a turn, and this pretty much either cuts it in half or literally makes it free the following turn after it's bounced or during the battle phase, in which it is bounced again via the grade 2, who I also feel is abusable. But 4 of the Let, like, very solid grade 1. Bounces, once she's bounced, she can probably soul charge 1, which, you know, cuts off any cost that was to bounce her. She's a 5k, 10k shield when she guards, and she's a 13k base or 18k base the moment she's placed, and she can possibly get you counter charge. Granted, a hard once per turn on that for some reason, but, well, okay, not for some reason, but still, like, you know, just an amazing grade 1 4 of. I can't think of an argument of why I can't make this a 4 of and why it shouldn't be a 4 of, so 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Diva Refreshing Calm Christine. Grade 1 boost is 0 souls, K base, continuous Sentinel. You may have to only 4 Sentinels in deck. I'll just put on guard circle. Choose one of you. It cannot be hit on the battle. And if your hand is 2 or more cards in it, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this and only one other card is in your hand, you place it on guard circle. You don't have to discard one, which is great. Hey, that's such a long time since I've been able to do that without, like, or at least feeling like I've slurred in my words. Okay, anyways, you know, that means you be as aggressive as you want in the early game. There we go. You can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, which in this deck you don't really want to be because, like, you want to save these until you're on Labrador. You want to technically save these until you're on Labrador, but if you want to play them early, you can. And then, like, the grade 2s, I guess you can kind of rush with. But, you know, when you eventually hit your opponent back and then you have a bunch of guard power that you stockpiled either via the draw triggers or consistent bouncing, and then your opponent counterattacks you, if for some reason you are out of hand cards because you've gotten to this point in the game where you got to be really stingy with things, you can throw down Christine, and then hopefully you have little to no hand cards and she'll be able to save you without having to discard it. All around, she's very solid. In this deck, that ability will probably never go off because I've had to go it off, but I mean, it works. So 4 of Christine, you can really make it any of the PGs, but I chose to go with Christine because theme. Then we have our Ride deck, grade 1. One of in the Ride deck, none in the main deck, and that is Diva of Thernaughty Marinette. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto when she was rode upon by Diva of Greeting Gloom Rosalita. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck to choose up to 1 card with Prism and its card name from Monthly. Reveal, put it to hand, shuffle your deck, and if you not reveal a card, you may call her to rear guard circle, and if you called, soul charge 1. The one game that I didn't pull, there's only one game in the entirety of all of my times playing this deck that I didn't pull a Prism from that, and I called her to rear guard and I soul charged. Somehow I won that game a lot easier because at that point, because I didn't see any of my prisms, because like none of them were in hand, and I didn't flip any of the top 7, and I had like damage checked 1 the previous turn. So my thought process was, well, I'm gonna lose anyways. So I just called her to the front row, and well, I didn't call her to the front row, I called her back center, and then I called these 2 to the front row, and I was like, you know what, screw it, let's just see where it goes, and I proceeded to drive check the over in the following turn into a crit. Like, I don't know why the deck was like, oh, yeah, screw it. We're just gonna go the other way around, and then I drew all my prisms that the following turn afterwards, but I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense. Either way, one of Merit in the Ride deck, she either gets you free prisms of any grade, and if they ever, God forbid, make a prism PG in D, it immediately can search PGs, and, you know, if you don't add something, free rear guard and literally replaces itself. So one of in the Ride deck, none in the main deck. We move on to our grade 2s. We run 3 copies of Rattling Good Time Flammy, a card that I put in here as a tech because I had everything else I want in this deck at 4 copies, and I had 3 extra spaces left, so I was like, who am I going to run today? And I just picked the random card that was revealed alongside Prisms, and I didn't think she would be useful. Well, in that one instance where she is the reason that I won, so I'm not going to discredit her anymore. Grade 2 is a 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when she is returned to the hand from your rearguard circle during your main phase. By counterblasting 1, you can draw a card and then choose one of your vanguards, and it gets plus 5,000 power for that turn. So, it does eat into the CB, and she is literally the only other card in this deck that costs CB in this, so, you know, she kind of competes with Labrador, which is why I didn't want her originally. However, you draw when she's bounced, and the Vanguard gets plus 5. Now, the Vanguard, it only gets plus 5 for her skill, so 18,000, plus its boost, so it's typically 26,000, because I normally don't like to boost with my Prisms unless I'm going all in that turn, and in that case, then the Vanguard's probably at a, what would that be, 31,000, maybe I have a Persona right, so 41,000, but then during that game specifically, I didn't have a grade 1 that I could afford to use on boosting, and the Vanguard went to 23k from this, 5k from its own skill, and then 5k from this skill. The card I drew was a Prism, the one that I didn't have, and I needed for the combo to work for 5 attacks. I know it's just coincidence, but I mean, Flammy kind of proved that she deserves to be here, so 3 of her, as much as I don't want to say it, she does deserve to be in this deck, so 3 of her, she works, she's a tech option. In worst case scenario, she's PG fodder, so there's that too. Then we have 4 copies of a card I didn't think was going to be useful at all in this deck, because again, it eats into CB, but then, somehow proved really useful, especially in the final turn games, and that is what color is your wish Valspin. So great chance of 5k shield 10k base. This is the other reason why I didn't think she'd be useful. Auto when she's discarded from your hand during your ride phase, Soul Blast 1 and bot deck her to draw a card. Eating away at this soul is what causes a problem, and then that's when I realize Lilette isn't a hard once per turn. Which is again why I feel like I'm doing something wrong, because there's no way in hell that I can just consistently bounce her every single time I want to, and then consistently get that soul right back to the point where I can actually spam this as much as I want in the early game, and then literally never have a downside to that. Like, I don't understand it, and it bothers me. But its other skill is Auto, when it's placed on the rearguard circle, if you Persona Road that turn, by counterblasting 1, choose one of your vanguards, and it gets continuous vanguard. All your front row rear guards get plus, or all your front row units, not just the rear guards, get 5,000 power until end of turn. That stacks, because it's like the thing from Dark Irregulars, the one strat. I said this last time in the Pacifica deck profile. I don't remember what the strat is called, but pretty much it gains, every time you soul charge, it gains the continuous ability. Your front row gets plus 1k, and because it's gaining it like a different one each instance, it's a skill that stacks even though it is a continuous effect. So basically what I'm saying is if you play all 4 of them in one turn and you did Persona Ride, you could, in theory, pay 4 CB and give a plus 20 to front row. If you somehow didn't win that turn, I would have no idea, because that means the front row got plus 30, 20 from these things, 10 from the Persona Ride, and F it, you might as well pull the over in it and give plus 50 to the entire rear guard. But, I mean, it is what it is. So, Overwatch is a very solid grade 2. Recycles herself, gets you free draws, prevents you from decking out, which is very helpful in the late game if there's a late game, and typically the soul would be a problem, but this thing exists, so obviously that's not a problem. And then, you know, possible free 5 to 10k, because I've never pulled off 3 of them consistently, so there's that for Valspin. Then we have our last grade 2 in the main deck, 4 of Diva of Waterheart Petroleo. So grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base. I now realize that there are more CBs in this deck than I remembered, but I mean, to be fair, it doesn't eat away at the CB that much, because you can just combo it well with her, and most of the time you're not going to call these to front row unless you really have to. And then, like I said, most of the time she's not going on board anyways. Auto, when she's placed on rear guard circle by counterblasting 1, check the top 7 cards of your deck. To 1 card, Prism is carnate from other reveal, put it to hand, shuffle your deck, and if you not reveal a card, you may soul charge 2. Cool! It's not a mandatory soul charge. If you're afraid of decking out, you don't have to use it, but free soul charge to spam out more of your soul blasters like her and Labrador later, but then also gets any prism regardless of what vanguard you're on. So you can be on this, the thing that does nothing with the deck because she is not a prism and she's not a Labrador. However, since he's a grade 2, play her, search for either this, or God forbid they gave us a PG and premium that happens, or in D that happens to have Prism in its card, and then you could technically search for this. Like, you know, free targets. And then auto rear guard. At the end of the she attack. If you have a Vanguard Labrador in its card name, you may return her to the hand. All around, pretty solid. And the reason why this is actually really good is because worst case scenario, if you don't have access to this, because this is your only other way of bouncing during the battle phase, and Labrador has to call to open rearguard circles. If for some reason you don't have her, you can immediately use Petronil as a last resort type of bounce to bounce herself to the hand. Now, it doesn't mean you can now pull off Labrador's ability consistently, because you still have to have 2 prisms in hand. However, you at least have the open rearguard circles in the front row, and it's not a mandatory bounce, it's a may. All around, she's a very solid grade 2. She is a last resort, opens up front and rear guard circles, and she literally gets her searches by you being on a grade 2. For Petronil, she's an amazing grade 2, and I love her skill. Then we have 4 copies of, I lied earlier, I guess, then about Petronil being the last grade 2 in the main deck, and that is Prism Promise Celtic, the other grade 2 in the main deck. This time is actually the last grade 2. So grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base, auto when she's placed on the rear guard or from hand or put on guard circle from the hand. If you have Vanguard Labrador in its card name, plus 5,000 power, 5k shield, literally the exact same skill word for word from Lilith. So all around pretty solid, 15k base for the turn she's placed, 10k shield, or combo it with her over here, and she becomes a 20k base, which is nice. And then her other skill, the thing that you are going to want to basically spam the front row with her, is auto rear guard. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked into anything, whether it's Vanguard or rear guard. If you have a Vanguard Labrador in its card name, Soul Blast 1 and return this unit to the hand, and then choose up to one of your rear guards with Prism in their card names and bounce it to the hand. So, her on her own, she doesn't have to be boosted. She can swing into anything as long as the Vanguard's a Labrador and you have 1 soul. Soul Blast 1, bounce herself and the other Prism in the front row back into the hand, and auto-trigger Labrador's full effect. And this is where I feel like it's cheating, because this is not a hard once per turn. It's not a once per turn in any way, shape, or form, meaning when you call her from Labrador's effect, you can then use Celtic skill afterwards to bounce her and Lilette back to hand, and then use Lilette's skill to literally make the bounce free. That is why I feel like I'm constantly cheating in this deck, because you can just consistently call these two down, bounce them back, and basically make it free. And if you're worried about decking out, I want to just be clear, I have not decked out in my entire time playing this deck. I have not come close. Well, okay, I have in the sense that in one game I came down to 8, but like, it's very hard to get down there. The only reason it got to that point is because both sides were consistently stacking all their heals. So 4 of Celtic, Celtic, very solid grade 2. Like 15k base, 10k shield when she's placed with Labrador, and she literally enables Labrador's full effect on her own, and then is basically made free by the existence of Lilette. Amazing grade 2, easy 4 of. And then we have the last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, and that is Diva of Greed and Gloom Rosalita. Grade 2 is a 5k shield, 10k base, autumn draw upon by using Labrador in its card name, to 1 unit card Prism in its card name from your hand. Call to rear guard token, if you call a card, you draw a card. So this one gets, if I could find it, this one gets a Prism, and then this one proceeds to call it, and then gets you a draw out of it. Cool. The best part is, too, it's not a mandatory call, so if you don't want to because you're really that afraid that, like, you think that the game's going to go on long, and you think that it might lead to your deck out, and you don't want to call just so you don't have to draw, cool. Don't. There's no downside, because guess what? You're probably on Labrador, because it has to be written on Labrador for this effect to go off, which means you're probably going to call that Prism anyways. So either call it just to get the draw, or if you're really that afraid of the deck out possibility, then just don't call it, and then just normal call it during your main phase. That's it. 1 of Rosalita in the ride deck, none in the main deck. Like, she's a free rear guard call and a draw. What's not to like about her? And the last card in the deck, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck, of a card who I didn't like before because I did judge it by its art. You never judge it by its cover. And after playing the deck, maybe it's because of her, maybe it's because of the other 2 things that are completely abusable in this deck, in my opinion. But it's really fun to play now, and that is Prism Promise Labrador. Grade 3 Tuner Persona at 13k base, active Vanguard Circle once per turn by Soul Blossoming 1, choose 1 of your rear guards and return it to the hand, and this unit gives 5,000 power for that turn. So, you know, just bounce her, make it free, and then give the Vanguard 5k, and by make it free, I mean Soul Blast 1, bounce Lilette, and then, you know, you get the 5k first, you gotta finish Labrador's skill, but then, because she was bounced, just Soul Charge 1, so it literally had no cost to it. And then Auto Vanguard, when she attacks into anything, by counterblasting 1, choose up to 2 unit cards with Prism in their card names from your hand. They can be the same name, as I realized, which is how I sometimes would close out with 2 of these if I really feel like it's necessary. Call into the open rear guard circles. It can be front row, it can be back row. This will probably guarantee its front row. This will guarantee its front row, kind of. So, I mean, there's that. And then if you called, you do draw a card, regardless. So, and that's an ability sometimes I forget to do, the draw card. And then his other effect is if your opponent's Vanguard is at grade 3 or greater when you do this. So you get the draw anyways, but if they're at grade 3 or greater, on top of that, you get an extra 5k to front row and a crit. So she's a 23, without Persona Right, she will be a 23k double critical unit. The entire front row is 5k, so this is either a 20 and then, or 25 thanks to this thing, and then this is either an 18 thanks to that thing, or actually no, there'd be 23. Yeah, she's either 18 or 23 thanks to this thing. So all around, pretty solid skill just off of that alone. And the best part is, it can be any 2 prisms, including herself. So if worst comes to worst, and you don't have either of these 2, I have never been in that situation in my life, and I've come close to it, but I've never been in that situation before. But if you get into that situation, and you just happen to have 2 copies of her in hand, just call 2 copies of her. The best part is, you don't even have to call 2 to get the full effect off. You just have to call 1, and you get every single benefit on this list. Because if you called a card, you can call both and still get the benefit, but if you only called 1, you still get the effect. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck. Rear guard consistency, literally it's just a free 5k if you combo with this one, and it just does everything it's supposed to do. That's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is very fun to play. I swear these 2 have to be illegal in some way, shape, or form, because this feels way too consistent for what it does. But, I mean, when you're consistently bouncing rear guards, getting them back, increasing their numbers, getting crits, drawing cards off it, anything is really going to feel like cheating at that point. So, I'm just one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us on Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to send up your Vanguards.